Welcome to the Wedding Songs Podcast, featuring newly released songs you need to know and the tried and true classics. Get song ideas from the time guests arrive until the last dance of the reception. And now your host, Matt Campbell, founder of MyWeddingSongs.com.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wedding Songs Podcast. I'm Matt Campbell. Today, we're going to be talking about Hawaiian weddings. And to help me along is Chavah Grant from Vida, Chic, Wedding and Events. Welcome to the show, Chavah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let me start off by asking you the way I start off most podcasts is ask you, can you provide a heartwarming or memorable wedding moment?
Sure. I get the privilege of planning the best day of people's lives. So I have tons. Obviously, probably most planners have tons of heartwarming moments, but I think my favorite is actually one of the girls, one of the brides, the clients that I had. She's a good friend of mine, even to this day. And her wedding, I think, was 8 or 9 years ago. Oh, wow. She might be coming on her 10-year anniversary. But there was a little bit of, she didn't know if her mom was actually going to show up to the wedding. The mom didn't necessarily care for her significant other. And so there's a little bit of tension. So I, being a mom myself, talked to the mom and also having seen this problem over and over again, just went and talked to her mom, said I wanted her to be a part of the planning process. And so I was just there to facilitate that. So I kind of came in warm saying that I was just there to facilitate the planning process and that her daughter definitely wanted her to be a part of it. And just kind of let her, a part of the planning, talk through why she was worried about this. And I said, mom to mom, you are going to regret not being a part of all this. It's the only time in your daughter's lifetime that this is going to happen. So even though you might have concerns, you're always going to have concerns because you're a mom and it's your daughter. And it doesn't matter what she's doing, whether or not she's going to school or it's a boyfriend or whatever, you're always going to have concerns. So don't let your concerns override this whole experience that you're only going to be able to have one time. And so her mom, not only did she come, she actually walked her daughter down the aisle as well. So she was a really big part of planning. She was a really big part of the event, and it was phenomenal. And it's so funny because now sometimes I'll go down there for holidays, and her mom and the significant other that she was worried about are like the best of friends now, which is so great to see now, 8, 9, 10 years later. So that was the best for me, just because that was something that kind of trickled into their everyday life, which is the best for any planner, right? Like that's the best outcome that could possibly happen. So that is my favorite story to this day, even 10 years later.
I think that that's a really important thing that you said is put your beliefs aside no matter what you think about the marriage. You're not going to be a part of any of their lives from that day forward if you decide not to be there, and you're just setting that precedence.
Right, definitely. And tomorrow is not promised, right? I've had brides who they had their dances with their dad, and then the very next year, or even before their first anniversary, their parent wasn't there anymore, right? And so it's like it's not worth the regret, even if it is a little uncomfortable for you in the moment. The regret for the rest of your life will be way more uncomfortable than any momentary discomfort or whatever. So I try to put that at the forefront when there are situations like that. And 9 times out of 10, we get people across the finish line in one piece with that piece of information, because it honestly is just, it's so true. They will regret it because it is the one and only time they're able to participate in something like that. So
I love it. So before we go any further, then, can you just please introduce yourself to our listeners?
sure. My name is Chavah Grant. I'm the owner of Vida Chic Weddings and Events. I've been doing events since I was 19 years old, and I am 39 now. So I've been doing it for a while, done thousands of events, from concerts to conferences to weddings, but weddings just hold my heart. There's just a special place in my heart for weddings. And so I leaned into that a couple years into doing events. I leaned heavily into weddings because I realized that I was a part of the one of 5 incredible moments in a person's life. And there are not many jobs where you can do that, right? Like you get to be like this incredible piece of something that they are going to remember forever and ever and ever. And so one, being very detail oriented and almost a perfectionist is definitely needed in a profession like this, but I get thousands of those, you know what I mean? Thousands of those once in a lifetime moments that I get to be a part of. So yeah, that's what I do in a nutshell. And like I said, done it for 20 years. So I know a thing or two. I've been around the block.
Well, that's great. That's a great lead into our first question. Then let's talk Hawaiian weddings. What traditions in the Hawaiian culture would you say that you incorporate into weddings?
Leis, everyone's very familiar with Leis, right? Even if you're not having an event or wedding or whatever, it's just it's a piece of the culture, and it's an easy thing to incorporate in several different ways in your wedding. So I love somehow tying that into Hawaiian weddings, whether or not it would be this you're laying people as they walk in, as you're greeting people, or if it's a part of the unity ceremony. I mean, in continental US, there's a lot of unity ceremonies where you are tying the cord or doing the unity candle or things like that. In Hawaii, we like to do that same type of ceremony, but with the lei. So there's so many ways to incorporate them. There are so many meetings behind different ones. You have the greenery, and you guys probably don't know the names of them, but there are some that are all green that are for men, but there are also some that are certain flowers that have different meanings and things like that. So there's so many ways to incorporate, but I love if we are doing a Hawaiian wedding, I love to be able to incorporate that in some capacity, because not only is it a fun way to bring Hawaii into your wedding if you're doing a destination wedding, but also it's something that it's a keepsake that you can kind of take away. You can dry them and save them and have them forever. And so unlike a unity candle that you probably put in a box and never see again, or unity candles are very tricky to keep, actually. They do not keep well. It's a great piece of memorabilia that you can take with you and have as a keepsake as well. So that's my favorite piece to incorporate, just because you can incorporate it. It doesn't matter what type of wedding. If you're having a wedding in Hawaii, there's a way to incorporate a lei.
So are there any other cultural rituals besides the lei that you see commonly?
There are a lot of Hawaiian blessings that we like to incorporate that are a little bit more that are a little easier to incorporate even for people that aren't necessarily religious, right? So those are a lot of cultural blessings are a really great way to, even if you don't want to do traditional vows or anything like that, those are always nice to kind of incorporate as well. So we do that a lot as well.
So are there any traditions in music or songs that you commonly see in the Hawaiian weddings?
People love to walk down the aisle to somewhere over the rainbow on an ukulele. That's that's my number
Yes.
one request when it comes to music. Actually, it's a story about a musician out there. People play live music everywhere. It's phenomenal. It's very organic. So there's a musician that was playing on the street, and a bride just casually walked by, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, we have to have him for my wedding." And so I had to chase down a musician who she didn't know the name. I had to figure out what corner he was on. So I ended up chasing down this musician for a couple of months, trying to figure out. I knew friends that were in the area. So I found this musician, and come to find out, 2 years after that wedding, he ended up playing for the wedding. It was great. But 2 years after the wedding, I looked at, oh my gosh, what is the name of that show? There's a show on ABC, and his name is Connor. And I was like, that's my budding musician that I had to chase down in the street. So yeah, music in Hawaii, it's a big part of the culture, and live music. There's almost at every event, there's some instance where there is a live musician that comes to play, which is very special as musicians, especially now in the age of TikTok, where everything is so auto generated almost, and just kind of perpetuating the same thing. It's such a special thing when you do have a live musician that's able to create something in real life specifically for your group. So I highly encourage live music, just because there's a special touch that comes along with someone playing something specifically for you.
So when you're speaking of that, what percentage would you say of the wedding reception is set to that
Mm.
particular culture, the language, and versus the popular hip hop that you hear
Mhm,
everywhere?
mhm. I would say in Hawaii, probably 8 out of 10 weddings for the cocktail hour will do live music. One, because most of the time, if you're doing a wedding in Hawaii, you're not in Hawaii for the buildings, right? You're not there to have everything enclosed and compartmentalized. You're doing it to enjoy nature, the ocean, the mountains, and different things like that. So having a cocktail hour with live music on the side of a mountain or beside the ocean, there's something magical about that. So probably about 80% of the time, about 8 out of 10, we're doing live music for cocktail hour for sure. And then if we're doing late DJs for later on and the hip hop thing, then sometimes that's incorporated later on. But yeah, for sure for cocktail hour, lots of brides enjoy it for walking down the aisle for the same reason, right? It's special. It's a little more magical, right? When you're walking down the aisle with the ocean as your backdrop, to have a live musician playing versus having Mick Jagger playing in the background. So yeah. So like I said, I really do, just because there are those moments that you can't get back, right? And a live musician, there is something magical that happens that incorporating that into that specific atmosphere, the atmosphere that is Hawaii, the environment that is Hawaii.
So, speaking of the environment, are there any seasonal considerations in Hawaii that affect wedding planning?
You know what's so interesting is I've done weddings all over the planet. I mean, Rome, Paris, all over the place. And there is very much seasonality in definitely in Europe, the continental US, but Hawaii, there's no season. It's the same all year round. The weather's always the same. The only thing that really changes is the water, right? The water gets colder in the winter, but the elements are all the same. The weather is the same. It's always between 70 and 85. There's always a nice breeze. Everything for the most part is open air because the environment just lends itself to be able to have nice weather and open air, open breeze and all that. It's really nice for events. So it's surprising because when I moved there, I've been there for about 7 years. I was used to there being seasonality, right? Used to there to being an engagement season and a heavy wedding season. And Hawaii just doesn't have that. It's very consistent. And that's why it is one of the most popular locations, even in the world, not even just in the US. It is top, I think it's top 3 in the US, but in the world, we have a lot of Japanese that come over for weddings. And just because you can plan it around any day, any time, and you're still going to get consistency. So that's the one good thing about Hawaii is that consistency. There's no hurricane season to worry about like Puerto Rico or anything like that. It's very consistent and mild, and the weather's always perfect. So it's great for a wedding planner for sure. You have that consistency.
Are there particular islands that you would recommend over others?
It's very interesting. I didn't realize before moving there how different the islands are. You would think Hawaii is Hawaii, but Oahu is definitely, there's a lot more city. So there's a lot more hotels. So if you want that indoor, outdoor, more formal hotel type of event, you definitely want to be on Oahu. It has a good mix. The one good thing about Oahu is because it is a bigger city and it is the main island. The main island in terms of infrastructure, there's a lot of hotels. If you're doing a larger there is anything that's over 50. I know that's not the case in the continental US, but anything over 50 is considered larger. In Hawaii, it's easier to do it on Oahu because you have the hotels, you have the accommodations, you have a bigger variety of things to choose from in terms of catering and musicians and things like that. So if you do need a little bit more variety or you have a larger wedding, you need to house more people, it makes more sense to do it on Oahu. There's obviously something for everyone there as well. So if that's the way you want to go, then I would go Oahu. If you want something a little bit more laid back and you have a smaller group, Maui is a little more expensive, probably by about 20 to 25%, but it is definitely a little bit more luxurious. Oahu it has a little bit more city vibe. It doesn't have that. It's very relaxing, tropical. It's really beautiful. It's a lot less touched than Oahu. So you're in Oahu, definitely it's like a well-oiled machine, right? Maui is definitely a little bit more low-key in terms of just the amount, right? The sheer amount of weddings that you can do there. But it's better for smaller. It's better for if you're going a little bit more luxury and have a little bit more budget. And then also luxury is key in Maui. And then Hawaii is more for your adventure brides. There's lots of hiking. You can do elopement on the side of mountains. There's helicopter packages for elopements and micro weddings and things like that. But it's definitely for your more adventurous brides that enjoy all of the elements and everything that an outdoor wedding has to offer. It's not I wouldn't go, if you're going luxury, Hawaii is probably not what you're going for. But if you're going adventure, interesting, crazy backdrops, mountains, mountain views and things like that, then Hawaii should be your island of choice. So they're all very, very different. And you wouldn't think that. It's just a 10-minute flight to get to any one of them if you're coming from Oahu. But there's something for everybody depending on what you're looking for.
Time for a quick break from the show to let you know about the Wedding Music Letter. Are you struggling to find the wedding songs that match your personality and music style? Are you having a hard time keeping up with the new wedding songs being released? Then subscribe today to the Wedding Music Letter by going to my website, myweddingsongs.com, and clicking on the Join Now button. Every Wednesday, you'll get song ideas to build your wedding playlists. On the last day of the month, you'll get all of the new wedding songs released from the prior month. So subscribe today and join over 7,000 other engaged couples and wedding pros by going to myweddingsongs.com and joining the wedding music letter today. Now back to the show.
Have you been to Hawaii, Matt?
I have not.
Oh, goodness, you got to go. It's great.
It,
For musicians, oh, my goodness, my goodness.
it's on my to-do list. If we do a cruise, we want to do a cruise of Hawaii that stops so that way you're spending the day on the
Right,
island and then sleeping on the ship.
right,
So
right. Yeah, that's definitely the way to go.
So let's say I'm in Las Vegas and I'm planning a destination wedding to Hawaii. What would you recommend just to make those experiences extra special?
Yeah. Hawaii is a very interesting place. If you're talking in terms of wedding, or you're just talking in terms of
A wedding. Yep.
yeah. So Hawaii is very interesting because it is very relationship based in the wedding community. And it's very everyone runs on aloha time, right? It's very relaxed. It's definitely not like if you go to New York, LA, Dallas, any of these Vegas, any of these bigger cities where everyone is hustling and they're working very quickly. It's not like that in Hawaii. So my first tip for anyone is one, just understand that off the bat. They're a little bit slower. They run on aloha time, which is at kind of a more leisurely pace. Because weddings are consistent across the board, that's also another reason why they run pretty even keel, because they know that it's constant, right? There's a constant flow of people coming in. So you just have to know that up front so that that doesn't frustrate you. Everyone is amazing. The customer service and everything is great. It just is a little slower. So knowing that up front is helpful for people, because I've had a lot of brides that come to me and, oh, they haven't, it's been 3 days and they haven't responded. And for there, it's normal. For other places, it's not, but just know that for there, it's normal. And they are doing things, they are working, but it just takes a little bit of extra time. So knowing that creates a little bit of it kind of eases some anxiety, knowing that it is getting done, it will get done, you will get your contract, all of that fun stuff. But Hawaii they just run on different
No.
different speed. They might be surfing in the morning and reading their emails. So just knowing that's helpful. So that's one number one. The other thing it is in other places you can get away with, if you do not live on the island, you can get away with not having a planner or not having a contact on island. But if you're not on island, it is definitely helpful. And I'm saying this from even from a non I know that I'm a planner, but even from a non-biased standpoint. In Texas, I could be a day of coordinator and it was perfectly fine because your bride was able to make contact and things would happen. But in Hawaii, because it is so relationship driven, it is helpful to get a planner up front, because not only will they know how you can save money, a lot of times you can save more money having a planner, because they know the people and the places. There's a lot of businesses that don't even have websites in Hawaii, because they've been able to connect with the planner, and the planners do everything for them. And even sometimes contracts for specific vendors will go through planners. So planners definitely are the key to having a successful event if you are planning from afar, because there's a lot of behind the scenes things that you would just not know that are very specific to Hawaii, especially when it comes to licensing in certain places, because a lot of things are outdoors, right? So where you can and can't do things, there's photography that you can and can't take in certain places because they're sacred places. So just all of those little nuanced things those problems that you wouldn't run into in other places, you'll run into in Hawaii. So being able to circumvent a lot of that stress before it happens. Because I've had people that have come on island that have used day of services, and there's a lot of pieces missing because they just didn't know, right? They don't know what they don't know. And it's just different. The culture and the way things are run, it's just a little bit different there. So having, even if it's not a full on planner, but having a contact or a connect on island that can kind of guide you through some of those things will be massively helpful, save you a lot of stress. So those two things, just knowing the timing and then having a contact. I recommend it be a planner, but if I know for budget brides, sometimes that's not always the most conducive and doesn't work necessarily for their budgets, then at least having, if you book your photographer or somebody else up front that can kind of be that connection point on the island, is going to also be your best bet and save you a lot of stress in the end.
Speaking of licensing, you brought that up. Is there different legalities between the islands and the places? Can you talk a little
Yeah,
bit more about that?
actually, surprisingly, yeah, there is. So we are kind of a rock in the middle of the ocean in the Pacific, right? So there's military bases and some military things. And because we are the central hub in the middle of the ocean between Japan and some other countries, So even drone shots and different things like that, there's a lot of little legalities that are different for different parts of the island, different islands themselves. So there's a lot of little nuanced things like that, specifically when it comes to photography, sacred places, grounds that you are allowed or not allowed to be on at certain times and things like that. And then the military component too. So yeah, there's a lot of little nuanced stuff in different parts of the island and on the different islands. So it's super helpful to be able to either research some of that stuff before, or like I said, have a person on island that can help you do that. Because even some of the different venues, there's a really great venue on the south part of the island, but it is actually considered a sacred place, and so there's certain days that you can and can't do things and stuff like that. So the culture is super super important, and if you don't respect that, then you'll have a problem on your hands. But because it's so different, there's just things that you wouldn't know unless you have someone that can be that connection piece that is aware of all those things.
That's really interesting. Even thinking of Jamaica, I want to get married on the top of a hill. Like, that could happen the same way in Hawaii, and
Right.
you have to, yeah, respect where that's going to happen.
Yeah, be very cognizant of those things, yeah. They were even this is outside of weddings, but they were putting a telescope on the top of a mountain. I'm not sure if you heard that a couple years ago, and that was a whole big thing too, because that mountain was considered sacred and nothing commercial, and they were gonna drill and all kinds of things. So, yeah, there's a lot of areas that are very special and considered sacred, and that you can either have small ceremonies, but you can't set things up, and just all those nuances that you just would never think about.
Interesting. So I know you moved to Vegas. I have to ask because they always bring up Vegas as being one of the another island on as part
Isn't
of
that so
Hawaii.
funny? Yeah.
Is that one of the reasons you moved here?
No, actually, Hawaii during the pandemic, Hawaii was obviously it was a very difficult. And so this ends up being a very good hub for me because I do destination events and things all over the planet. So this ended up being a really good midway spot in between LA, which I do a lot of events and things in LA, and keeping up with everyone that all my clients and things that I have in Hawaii. So that's why it just ended up being a really good spot that through the pandemic, it was helpful to land here. So, yeah, it's a hop, skip, and a jump away from Hawaii, so it makes it very easy for me, so but you're right,
So
I didn't realize that till I got here.
you can have Hawaiian food anytime you want.
No, I that. That's also why I was like, "I gotta stay here. This is perfect.
Right.
Happy medium."
So is there something that we missed today that you want to share about Hawaiian weddings, or anything to help couples plan their weddings?
I don't know if we tell you about the curated wedding?
No.
No, okay, great. So basically, I made another product throughout the pandemic because my TikTok really blew up. People were trying to figure out how to navigate through everything that was COVID and how long and where and how and all that fun stuff. So I realized how many people really need a contact that they can talk to on a normal basis, but don't necessarily need someone to take the reins and plan the whole thing, right? And so, but having a contact in the very beginning to steer them the right direction is super helpful. But I was trying to figure out what the happy medium was. Like I'm not a full planner because I want to be budget friendly and I understand, want to respect you guys have the whole rest of your lives to worry about money. Let's not start there. So I made this product called the Curated Wedding, which is basically a wedding membership site where people have access. I go on lives once a week and also have a digital twin on there that's got all my resources that I've developed so that they have a way to ask the questions, to get advice, to have all the planning tools and things that they need, things that I used and have developed over the last 20 years. So it's a place where they can get all those things without spending the money to be able to have because my full service planning is around $6,000, $7,000 depending on where you are, and that doesn't make sense for a lot of people. So I tried to encapsulate everything that I do, all the tools that I use, and then even me, right, to be able to help those brides that do need a me but can't necessarily afford a me. So it's called the Curated Wedding. We didn't launch too long ago. We launched in the middle of the pandemic, and then I've kind of revamped it now that I've created a bunch more tools. But there's some really great resources in there. One, the tools, right? But the really great part is the lives that you have with me, so that you are able to ask this question to an actual planner. The AI tool where that is my digital twin. So all of my resources and everything that I've learned over the last 20 years is all jam-packed into that. But then there's also a thing that we've created called the Swap Marketplace, and it's a completely free marketplace because everyone knows people are buying things and they use them one time and then they go in a box or they never see them again or they try to sell them or whatever the case is. But everyone's using these things, most of these things, table numbers and centerpieces and sometimes glassware and dresses and all kinds of stuff. And they just kind of are packed away and go to die or they're just not ever utilized again. So we created a swap marketplace where people can put their things on there for free so they can either trade things or there's no money exchange though. So it's completely free. So you can trade things or after your wedding is done, you can give it away. You can put it on there or you can even decide to collaborate. So lots of people have lots of October weddings. The color scheme is normally all wine colors or oranges and different things like that. So there's a lot of ways that brides can collaborate on, okay, you buy the table numbers and I'll buy the glassware. And then your wedding is this weekend. My wedding is this, we'll swap. You know what I mean? So you're able to do things like that with this community of brides so that it's just another way for you to be able to save money. Cause like I said, how many times are you going to use those table numbers? So that's
Or the
swap
chargers.
marketplace. Yeah, right. The chargers. Yeah. Oh my gosh, the chargers for sure. But yeah, like if you're doing a spring wedding, there's a color scheme or at least palettes that you're probably choosing from. If you're doing a winter wedding, there's palettes you're probably choosing from. So having these sister brides that are doing similar things, it's another way for people to be able to one, collaborate and have a battle buddy, but then also, save money because that is people's number one concern when they're planning their wedding is the budget part of that. So it's just another way for them to be able to save money.
So how do they find the curated wedding?
Sure, I can link. It's www.thecuratedwedding, CURATED wedding.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And before we go, how can listeners connect with you?
Sure. I am on Instagram. I am on TikTok. If you want like quick little tips, TikTok is the best way. It is Vida Chic Events, VIDACHIC events. And then I'm Vida Chic Events all over the internet. So anytime you want to find me, I am there and I'm pretty active. So DM me or email me. All my information is all there.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Chavah, for joining the show today and your insights into Hawaiian weddings.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. Stay tuned for next week for another episode of the Wedding Songs Podcast. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Wedding Songs Podcast. Never miss a future episode. Subscribe today to our podcast. Follow us on Facebook at My Wedding Songs and send us a message about playlists you would like covered.